Hey guys, it's Elena, and today I wanted to share with you a piece that I made that is an abstract landscape, and I made it in Procreate using my Painterly brush set. And if you have the brush set, you can follow along. You can also follow along with any other brush set that you might have that is a oil or acrylic type painting brush set. And the idea with this piece was not to make it look realistic, but I just wanted it to look vaguely like something that you might see out of a plain window. So I hope that you enjoy it, and let me know if you have any questions. I will be using a canvas that is 16 by 20 inches at 300 dpi, and my Monet Water Lilies color palette, which comes with my Painterly brush set. And to start out with, I'm choosing two light blue colors as the primary and secondary colors, and I'm using my Master Impressionist brush to just put some different texture and color up here at the top of the piece in order to make the sky. Selecting an even lighter blue color, I'm going to go ahead and go with my Choppy Strokes brush and add a bit more texture to the sky. Now I'm selecting a pure white color by double tapping by the white, and I'm selecting my soft streaky palette knife brush, and I'm going to start to trace around these shapes that I've made with the more textury brushes in order to make some small wispy areas of white that look like clouds. I'm just doing the same thing with the dry palette knife brush. And now I'm selecting the brush called Super Dry, and I'm just doing the same thing with this brush with white still selected, just kind of making these vague cloud shapes around the existing texture. Now with the brush Dry Oil selected, I am going to create some more wispy areas that will mimic some cloud formations. Now I have selected a light greenish gray color, and I'm going to go ahead and go with my palette knife brush, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this brush, take it fairly small, and just make an outline of the hills in the background. And I'm going to be putting a lot of different sort of stripy colors into this, and so I'm going to keep it pretty abstract. It's not really meant to be really realistic. Now I'm just going to keep on doing the same thing with different colors and different versions of the palette knife. So I'm going to use the streaky palette knife, and then I'm just going to keep on experimenting with different palette knives and different colors to create some stripes across this background. Now I've selected a light green color, and I'm going to go ahead and go with my thick flat oil blend brush. So there's several different versions of this brush, and I'm going with the blend brush because I want to go ahead and start blocking out some different areas in the bottom half of the screen that will look a little bit like fields, like when you're looking down from a plain window, how you can see different patches of color. And I just kind of wanted to recreate that a little bit. So I'm going to be blocking out some different areas using this brush and using different colors. So at this point I selected my soft streaky palette knife again in various colors, and I wanted to go ahead and add a bit more definition to these areas that I had been blocking out. At this point I decided to go with my smudge tool instead of the brush tool, so I selected the smudge icon up at the top, and then with that selected I found my Painterly brush set again and chose my soft palette knife. And with this brush on the smudge setting, I'm just going to go ahead and add more definition to the corners and the transitions between these different blocks. Now back to the soft streaky palette knife, still adding more definition, more transitions, and just letting these different fields of color take shape. At this point, I decided that I wanted some more defined tiny little lines up in these hills in the background. So instead of the soft streaky palette knife, I switched to just the plain soft palette knife, and I just added some more lines and stripes of color in the background. Again, not really going for anything super realistic, but I just wanted something a bit more colorful in the background. So at this point I went back to my super dry brush and took it really small, and I'm just gonna smear these lines that I've just made. And if you haven't guessed by now, this whole piece is basically just a delicate dance between defined lines and smearing them, and then defining them some more, and then smearing them some more. And it's just kind of playing with texture the whole time. At this point, I took my soft streaky palette knife again and chose a pure white again. And I wanted to add some white to some of these areas just to add a bit more definition. And if you're ever thinking that your piece is not looking very impasto or like streaky paint at all, it always helps just to add a little bit of white. Just some streaks of white here and there can really help with the definition and make it look more realistic, like real paint. Back to the thick flat oil blended brush, I'm just adding some more brush strokes, making it a bit more dimensional on this bottom half, and just kind of working around with this brush, adding some more brush strokes and streaks wherever I can. To the streaky palette knife, adding yet more lines of definition to the hilltops in the background. At this point, I took my smudge tool again instead of the brush tool, and with the smudge tool selected, I chose the flat gesso brush. And again, I'm just smearing some of this that I have been adding, not too much, so you can still see the stripes, but some of it looks a bit smoother and more smeared together when I'm using this smudge brush. Once again, selecting my thick flat oil blend brush and just adding a few more brush strokes on top of certain areas. So at this point, I decided that I wanted more defined lines around the different areas, the different patches in this piece. And so I took my soft streaky palette knife and I started to trace around these patches in order to make them more defined looking. Now, just to give you a little disclaimer, I'm not 100% happy with how this piece turned out. I think that I could have done a lot of things to make it better. I'm not sure how I liked how it looked with the lines around the patches here. But I wanted to go ahead and share the entire process in order to highlight the fact that we are our own worst critics. And I've never really been 100% happy with anything that I share online, really. But to me, it's more important that I share something that can be a source of inspiration. And I just wanted you to know that I'm not always happy with what I make, because I always get these messages from people constantly about how what they make doesn't look as good as what I'm doing or what someone else is doing. And they think it just doesn't look good and they must be doing something wrong. And, you know, I will try to be helping these people, and then they will send me a picture of what they've made. And actually, I think it looks amazing and I don't see anything wrong with it. In fact, I wish that I could do so well. So I think that this is a pretty common story, and we criticize our own work a lot more harshly than we would do anyone else's. So that's something to keep in mind, that you know, sometimes it helps to just take a step back and then look at it again another day, and then you might realize that actually that was pretty good. And just keep in mind that you need to be a bit kind to yourself, and the whole point is not to make something perfect, but actually just to enjoy the journey and to get into the flow. And if you do that, then whatever comes out of it will actually look good, because that is coming from a deeper place. At this point, I went back to the smudge tool and I chose the soft streaky palette knife and just kept continuing smudging colors around and pushing things until I was happy with it. And back to the soft streaky palette knife as a brush instead of as a smudge in a white color, just one more time to add a little bit more white streaky lines. So this is about it for this piece. I hope that you enjoyed it and that it served as inspiration for you to go and make something that is uniquely you and take away the message that it doesn't have to be perfect, and getting into the flow is a lot more important than stressing over little things here and there. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.